Next up is Bill Davoren, who will make a performance about our high performance this year and going forward.
Good evening. Just get that presentation up. Just want to concentrate on the four things that the high performance and medical team concentrate on every year. They haven't changed over the last couple of years. This is the third time I've stood up and taken you on this journey that we've been on. I want to touch base first on what we call capacity development, which is essentially their physical development. It comes off a platform of two things. Got that presentation going, guys? Yeah, we're getting there. Next one. Next one. So look, there's two things we really concentrate on. We make all our decisions based on the demands of the game. So what's the game ask of the players every week? So every decision we make around the physical preparation of our team is what's happening in the game, what do we have to do to prepare them to play 22, hopefully 26 games of football over the course of a year. The journey is about 10 months in total. It's a lengthy journey. It's one of the longest seasons in any domestic competition in the world. So we always look at the demands of the game, and it ranges. Typically these days, players are covering between 12 and 15 kilometres. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's up about 30% of that is above 20 kilometres an hour. So that's a fairly quick. If you think about running a 3-minute kilometre, which is a 30-minute 10K, they're spending 30% of their time in a game running above that pace. So it's a fairly significant demand on them. The second thing we look at consistently is individualisation. A lady spoke down about the communication with 45 players. We've got 45 different genetic makeups, 45 different personalities, 45 different training backgrounds, 45 different injury histories. That makes for a significant number of decisions that get made on any given day, multiplied by about 300 days in a year. So we have to treat them to get the best out of them. We have to treat them individually. Those 6 areas above that we talk about are the capacities we aim. They're probably 6. There's probably more than that, but they're probably the 6 foundation ones that we consistently chase. I can tell you that after the course of the pre-season that we've had significant effect over 3 years on a number of those areas. This year we had over half the list improve their running capacity. And that's a fairly significant, substantial. We moved a significant number of our midfielders down into what I consider a truly elite area. We've had significant impact on their strength, and when we left the end of the pre-season, we were very happy with both the repeat effort, the agility and the speed. This year we kept the speed work going through the course of the year with a number of the individuals like Sinclair, Moore, etc., guys that are more predisposed to that need for speed. We kept that going as a part of your program, and anyone that actually came to any of the trainings would have seen times when they were actually withdrawn at the end of the training to actually continue along that. So in terms of the capacity development of our list, we believe at this particular point in time after 3 years that we've got them in what I consider an elite area. And we're on the verge of taking another step over the course of this pre-season.
Yeah.
So yeah, big back. Yeah, there we go. If we move on, we want to touch base on injury management. Obviously that's a fairly big area. What you've got in front of you with the next graph is a breakdown of the last 4 years, purple being 2016. Just to give you, in case you can't see some of those numbers, this year we had 208 games missed. We measure injuries by the amount of games missed over the course of 22 rounds at both. So we had 208, we're up from 164 this year. You'll see the next box together, there's 4 of them there, is the soft tissue area. We were down to 20 missed games in 2016. You'll notice the next one, trauma, 156. So that includes concussion and anything to do with broken bones, dislocations, knees, ankles, Liz Franks, etc., etc. So we had 156 games missed this year, and I'll show you the breakdown of that in a moment on the next graph. Overuse is essentially where a body's is breaking down or it's responding to a repetitive loading situation. We had 24 of those, and we had 8 illnesses. If you flick to the next graph, so over the course of the last 2 years, we're up 26% in injuries from the previous year. In trauma, which made up 75% of our injuries this year. So trauma made 75% up, we're up 136%, which is unbelievable. From round 1 onwards, we entered into round 1, I believe, with 2 guys on the do not play list. I think by the end of the round one, we had 7 or 8 with trauma injuries after the case of round one. Soft tissue, we had 20, which were only 9% of our injuries. So we were down 66%. So the gentleman that asked before about the soft tissues, we peaked a couple of years ago in my first year, and we went through that in regards to the training regime, the increase in training load. We've actually significantly reduced that over the last 3 years. Illness is about normal, and the overuse is down by 20%. So that's an accurate reflection of where we're at in terms of our injuries for 2016. Yes, we're not happy with the number. Yes, obviously the trauma is an area, and people are going to ask, what are we doing about investigating trauma? We continue to look at ways. We've presently got one of our staff members over in America with Jackson Ramsey undergoing some rehabilitation with ACL and looking at new means of loading knees. We've been working extensively with our body conditioning lady that works with us from Australian Ballet about what's going on in some of the ballet research with loading and unloading and repetitive landing. So there's a number of things that are going on inside the program that we're continuing to pursue. How do we reduce trauma? But as a wise man once said to me when I entered into football, if you truly want to stop trauma, don't tackle, don't jump, don't kick, don't run fast, don't play football. It is a game that unfortunately, whether we like it or not, is going to incur some injuries. And the reality of the situation is that some of you may look at me and go, well, gee, those injuries have been bad over the 3 years, but the reality of the situation is there's been injuries at Collingwood Football Club before I got here, there's injuries while I'm here, and there'll be injuries when I leave. But I can accurately say to you that we've pursued aggressively a reduction in soft tissue, and we'll continue to chase trauma. If we look at injury prevention, and I've alluded already, again, coming back to the individualisation of the program, these are the key things we've done. We've done a lot of work in this football club around the load management situation. We're not a club, or my group, and I'll speak a little bit about the group of people that I work with at the end, we're not a group that spends a lot of time on Twitter. We don't Facebook. We actually just work. In that load management particular area, there's a piece of work that's gone on by a young man in this football club that hasn't at this point in time been recognised, but in the last 18 months he's overhauled the way we look at how we manage load. And it's challenged a number of the academics of the world at the moment, and they're scratching their heads at one of the universities about how we've gone about it. It is actually a world-leading piece of work, and that load management system that's in place at this particular point in time has been a significant impact on our soft tissue. Specialty programs, you've obviously heard about Ben Reid and Ben Sinclair and a number of the players that have worked with Paula Baird-Colt. Paula Baird-Colt is an ex-principal ballet dancer for the Australian Ballet. She's about 5 foot tall. And she's a very strong and very talented and very knowledgeable woman. She's had a significant impact on our players. Her work with Ben, the two Bens, is time-consuming, demanding, and she's here just about every day. She splits her time working between Collingwood Football Club and the Australian Ballet. She's been one of the best assets that we've got in place at this football club, and I'm absolutely proud to have her as a colleague to work with, and I know that even in the last 3 weeks since we finished playing the season, the number of players that have been in working with Paula at 7 o'clock in the morning in their off-season just speaks for the impact that she's got on them. Obviously, we continue to go down the functional movement. By functional movement, I continue to look at ways of putting the body in positions that the game asks. You take a Taylor Adams this year when he tore his hamstring in the game against the Bulldogs, when we go back and we look at the video, it was one of those positions that it's incredibly unique. At one particular moment, he was put in a position that stretched the body under power and under speed in one unique position. We continue to review and look at ways of challenging the body, of how to get that strong in football positions. Our monitoring's very deliberate, and obviously our screening. We're upping the screening that we're going to do this year in the pre-season about ways of learning and trying to get an understanding of more predisposition to injuries. So there's a lot that goes into injury prevention. We talk about resilience in my program. We talk about how do we address resilience. I'll get that next slide up, please. It's an old but a goodie that sits in front of me every day, and the reality of it is that people look at success and think that success looks like a linear graph. But the reality of the business that we're in is that we take these people on a journey, and we have to take them on a journey that sometimes goes 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They play a very demanding and very, at times, dangerous game. And our job is to build resilience in them over a period of time by increasing their body strength, their body endurance, their body speed, and their capacities to be able to handle that game. We've built this group up now to withstand some fairly solid training programs. The pre-seasons that we've had over the last 3 years, I believe, have put us in good stead going forward. I showed you graphs 2 years ago about where we were in terms of total distance covered and et cetera, et cetera. This year we jumped into some of the numbers that I believe are relevant to making us a relevant physical team. So we continue to pursue that. The gentleman asked before about resilience. We continue to build together, mongrel and stuff. We continue to put training sessions together at times in back-to-back situations that challenge them. There are some 7 o'clock mornings on Saturday after 15k football sessions out here that I can guarantee aren't much fun. So we're doing a lot of work to continue through our training program and building resilience, both physical and mental, for the long haul. And that's a part we take very seriously. Lastly, if I can just make one final comment, I showed you this graph last year of the people pursuing excellence and pursuing improvement. What are we going to do in 2017? We're going to continue to improve. We're going to continue to chase improvements. That means we're going to continue to work over the next, boys are having a rest now, but they'll start to work in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Once we hit the track again on the 7th and the 22nd of November, we'll continue to work hard again. The sessions will not be easy and it'll be challenging. We'll have about 10 weeks to prepare them. But I want to talk around what goes behind the chase for that improvement. I represent one of about 23 people that are involved in this program. I've got Chris Bradshaw down here, my medical director, and I can guarantee that the people I've got around me are as good as anywhere that I've worked in my 30 years in high performance sport. They are a world-class team of people. They're a group of people that I trust, who have significant impact on the decisions that get made around these players. We take each injury, we take each bad day personally, and we pursue every day trying to rectify that and turn it around and make it better. But I can guarantee to you that I believe we're on our way, and that the key thing that we've got behind us on our way is the people that I've got around me and that I work with in the footy department to transition to what I call greatness. So that's a very quick summary of where we're at from a high performance and medical point of view.
Thank you, Bill. Great stuff. What are they going to do with their month or 2 months off?
The first thing we try and do is encourage them to actually have a break. I mean, it's roughly a 40 to 42 week preparation and training load. They need some rest. Right now, most of them are in rest, but I should say, and I've already mentioned, that there are a number coming through the gym. They'll receive programs from the strength and conditioning team over the next week, and we'll just build slowly towards a resumption on the 7th. I'm a believer if we can get them about 90% fit when they turn up on the first day, that allows the 12 weeks to take them on a journey, and that's what we do.
Up the back there, sir.
Hi, Bill. Going on from what Bucks mentioned, how our game is based a bit on pressure, is there any concerns at all from backing up, especially with a short day period, with such an intense game that we play?
Yep, it's the game. If you talk to the players, I spoke to Swanee on the exit, and one of the things he said to me is the game is just getting harder and harder and harder. And he said it's getting harder to recover. We're finding it is getting more and more challenging to recover, especially on the 6-day breaks. So again, we go back to that load monitoring system, the decisions that get made around it, and there's a lot of decisions that go into managing it. One of the biggest challenges we had this year was coming off Anzac Day, going to Perth and coming back from Perth. That's always a challenge. But yeah, the game is getting more demanding, and there are cases at times this year where we've gone into a 7 and 8 day break where our training loads have been significantly lower than what they have been in previous years to cater for the demands of the game previous and what we expect coming up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bill, just 2 questions. Firstly, Darcy Moore, is his hamstring going to be an ongoing problem or will that be repaired? And also, how's Jamie Elliott's back coming along?
Okay. I'll flick to Chris in a minute about Jamie. Darcy Moore's hamstring that he injured in the last, he had the issue against the Bulldogs, if I recollect, was one of the last 2 or 3 games. Was not a bad one, and we got him back. We made a decision to get him back. We actually took a risk to play him in the last game. It's not the same hamstring as last year, and it's very much what we call a neural situation. It was coming from his back. So we're confident. Darcy's pain-free at the moment and already moving. We're confident that Darcy's well on the way to being a resilient body. I should say around Darcy, I think this last year he played 15 games and he played 17 this year. 5 were missed with a collarbone break from Dale Morris, clicking him in the right spot. Prior to that, I think about 3 years prior to coming here, I think he'd played roughly about 30 games in 3 years. So we're happy with his progressions as a second-year player, but we're confident that the hamstring's are okay.
Dr. Chris Bradshaw is going to address you in relation to Jamie Elliott.
Hi guys, how you going? So Jamie's situation was a quite unusual back injury. Had a developing stress fracture through a part of his back called the pars interarticularis, which is part of the part of the back that the fast bowlers get problems with. We treated him at the end of last season with a couple of weeks off, and he actually did really quite well, and his pain came back during the pre-season. And then we had a couple of efforts to try and get him right conservatively. In the end, we sought the opinion of a few guys overseas who worked in cricket in England, and in the end decided to go for a surgical option. The latest news we had last week is that the back is healed. He's got a normal feeling back now. A couple of screws in the pars interarticularis, but going well. So a long process for poor Jamie, but we think we've got him in a situation now where he can start to train and should be right to go by Christmas time and beyond, I would imagine.
Fantastic.
What Chris didn't say there is that was a very challenging and very complicated injury. One of the more complicated ones I've seen in my time in football.
Thanks, Chris.
We don't think so. We're confident that we'll get Jamie back to the level that you have seen in the past.
Yes, madam.
You mentioned the increase in trauma. I just wondered, with the impact, whether just for Collingwood or across all the teams, how much that has had to do with concussion management, with the increase in research and more extensive management and more awareness around concussion. Is that just Collingwood, or is that?
No, it's across the league. Obviously, the concussion management across the league has gone up this year. There are a number of clubs that will report trauma lists similar to ours. I can tell you that. I know the Bulldogs have had it as bad as anyone. So trauma this year, whether that's a reflection on where the game's at, but I mean, I can tell you that the Fasolo injury, the one that he encountered against the Bulldogs, I think Chris has had one of those at a minor level in 30 years in football. So it's an incredible. We've had a couple of really unique. The Dane Swan one was one of the worst ones I've ever seen. So we've had just one of those years, but as I said, we don't just say bad luck. We actually are looking at how we can continue to improve.
Yes, sir.
A very sensitive issue. Drugs in sport, drugs in this club, probably falls within your area, especially with young men. Over the break period, is there any club testing that is done of the players? And I'm aware of testing throughout the year, but certainly the club, recreational drugs especially. We sometimes hear in the media of players. I know Lockie and Josh got done, but what's the club looking at that?
Let me have a go, that one. How do I put this? There were stories that were written about our club at the start of the season that were incorrect. The AFL, under questioning at the board table to their senior executives in charge of this, they came and presented, and Chris, jump in at any stage here because this is your area, because we're not to know things, but our fears, which were heightened and piqued by the reports in the paper, we didn't take them lightly, but we had no visibility on it, were allayed by the AFL to the point where we were far more content with the situation in our club than when we went into the board meeting. Chris, is there anything more we can say other than that? I'm not saying that... we've got to be careful because we are under strict confidentiality, but I think it's only... But it's... Yeah, mate, if we had the answer to the drug problem, I wouldn't be sitting here up in the Bahamas. But...
Anita, we have inherited this situation with the AFL where there's a punitive illicit drugs policy which they've peddled out, and we've got to abide by that. I think I'm proud of the fact that clubs on 2 occasions now paid for some extra hair tests so that we've tested everyone, which is really cool this season. I'm not allowed to say too much, but I think we've done some things internally to make the situation much, much better, and we'll continue to do so. And I think pretty happy with the way things are going right now.
It's a very pertinent question, so don't feel that you've asked us something you don't want to talk about. it's something we are right on top of, and we're confident that we're going well with, as you can be. Thanks, Chris, and thank you for letting us sort of talk about it. You're next after this lady here, okay?
Just wanted to ask, Matt Scharenberg is obviously one of our much vaunted high draft picks from several years ago, and obviously he's, apart from the foot issues, has done ACLs, I think, on both knees. Is there any knowledge whatsoever whether that's just bad luck, dumb luck, bad construction of his knees that's now been fixed, or because, I mean, obviously there are some players that have had 2, 3, 4 knee reconstructions and gone out the back door, and we don't want that. So just wondering if you have any knowledge.
Matty's had as tough a road as I've seen in my time in footy. I mean, his recovery from his first ACL was lightning quick, and we were really confident. We finished him off last year and he played 5 or 6 games of football, and we were really confident with the way. The accident was an innocuous accident out here. It was a landing accident just going back with the flight. We've reviewed, what were the potential precursors around that. We're pretty confident that there was nothing untoward that led to that particular injury. He's worked tirelessly. We held him back at the last couple of weeks. He actually could have been back in full training. We're confident that luck will turn for Matty, and that we'll see Matty Scharenberg back out this year.
Okay. Touch wood.
Touch wood.
We're touching wood. What's your name, sir?
Zach.
Zach, stand up on that chair and give it your best, mate. Come on. All right, Zach.
Do you think there's going to be any players who aren't good to go next season?
Aren't good to go? No, I'm not. I think we'll actually be pretty good. We've had a number of guys in surgery in the off-season. We're pretty confident we'll have most blokes back in full training by the start, just after Christmas. It'll be modified like it always is up to Christmas for certain individuals, but we're pretty confident that we should have most boys on the track by the end of the first week in full football.
All right, time is now on the wing. We'll get one here and one there, and we'll let Bill set it out. Yes, sir.
Just one.
Microphone, mate.
Are they off to any pre-season camps this year, or is that?
No, we're going to take the first to 4 years to Falls Creek, which we've been doing the last couple of years consistently, but we're actually going to stay home this year. We're going to concentrate on the preparation in Melbourne. We're going to keep it very simple. We're not going to try and do anything radical. We're going to stick to the formula that we've had in place for the last couple of years. We're going to mix it up. We'll do some odds and abouts, and we've got some things mixed around to test them at certain times, but predominantly in Melbourne.
Okay, and the last one over here, sir. You all right? Just talk.
Microphone on?
Yep.
Bill, I just wanted to ask, you mentioned earlier in your presentation about capacity. We've built up to elite level now. But I can see with Collingwood's style of play, which we all know is in their DNA, high pressure, high intensity, team defence, that the demands are going to get higher and higher, especially with interchange coming down. So what do you do to respond to that?
Yeah, look, we anticipated the interchange was going to go down. So one of the things when I first came into this role 3 years ago, we talked about what it might look like in 3 or 4 years' time. We went down the journey of changing the way we train to actually prepare for that. So we're well down the road for handling it. We handled it very well this year in terms of the physical demands. We were pretty confident through the course of the year that we didn't get into a lot of strife. We had the odd game here or there where we fell away, but we were comfortable for the most part with the way we handled 4 quarters. Most of what we continue to develop individuals, so we continue to pursue. There's growth. There's growth in Brodie Grundy still. If you look at Brodie Grundy's capacity and running ability over the last part of the season, that was one of the highlights, because that's a guy that when I first came in here told me that he couldn't run. And yet I was watching a guy sitting on the bench at the end of the year running away from other ruckmen. So we've got that. We're seeing that growth. We continue to pursue that in individuals, but a lot of the management is week to week in season. How do they bounce out of that game? How do they recover? What's the demands of the game? And what buttons do we press to try and get them right next week? We try the best. We don't always get it right, but I can guarantee that I could put 17 of my counterparts up and they'd say the same thing. Some weeks they get it right, and there's the odd week where you don't, because you're trying to read 45 individuals. But we continue to pursue improvement. We will train hard out here over summer, but a lot of what goes on is in season, And that's when we have to press the right buttons.
Well done.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Bill. Bill, our high performance manager, I think I called him a phys editor before when I got up there. Mate, my apologies. I wasn't being derogatory of any situation there. Bill does a fantastic job, and Chris Bradshaw over here is just one of the best in the caper. So our guys are well looked after, and as you can see, no stone has been left unturned.